Revealed, my daughter's shocking words left me homeless, but out of this, I bought a building. The air in Greg's chest felt tight as he stared at the empty space where the factory had once stood, a place filled with machinery, sweat, and pride. 20 years of hard work stripped away, leaving him not just unemployed, but feeling like a ghost of himself. Just when he thought he might muster the strength to face another day, his daughter Sarah delivered a blow that echoed throughout their modest home: "You're nothing without your job." The words hit like icy needles, freezing any hope he had left. Winter crawled in with tremors of frost that pierced deeper than the sharp winds outside. Greg wrestled with hopelessness as days turned into weeks and sleep transformed into restless nights. The stress of their situation was visible on Sarah's face, too. Her eyes, once bright with dreams, now carried shadows of worries that crept in like unwelcome houseguests. Greg felt the distance growing. He wanted to comfort her, to tell her they would figure it out, but his own sense of worthlessness suffocated those thoughts. Then, as he stared out at the colorful decorations of the community center nearby, the layers of despair began to peel away. That place was filled with families sharing meals, laughter, and stories that revealed the raw power of human connection. Rather than falling deeper into despair, it ignited something in Greg, a desperate wish to reclaim his life, to rebuild not just a home, but an identity. Frustrated yet undeterred, he threw himself into odd jobs. Delivering groceries, cleaning gardens, anything that could earn a little cash. It was through the community center that he discovered a sale on an old, abandoned building at the edge of their neighborhood. It was crumbling, but to Greg, it symbolized resilience, a chance for hope. It could be something for the community. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With a fire in his heart, Greg finally convinced Sarah to join him in this endeavor. As they scraped the walls of that old building, tensions flared like the sparks they created. Each brick became a metaphor for their struggle. But the weight of Sarah's cruel words loomed over them, unspoken. One cold evening, as they painted over years of neglect, Greg's voice trembled, ready to break the silence. "Sarah, you don't understand what that job meant to me. It was my way of taking care of you, and when I lost it his heart ached, each word tumbling out wrapped in vulnerability." Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she caught the storm of emotions inside her. She felt the weight too: the late nights, the silence at the dinner table, their lives dangling by a thread. "You think I don't care? I'm scared," she shouted, frustration pouring out in raw honesty. In that half-restored room, everything was laid bare: the love, the pain, and the desire to connect. But could they truly find a way to reclaim not just a building, but their fractured relationship? As the chilly shadows danced around them, the question loomed: could transformation emerge from the ruins of their world? The following weeks were a blur of paint, sweat, and silent reconciliations. As the old building slowly transformed, so did the flickering hope in Greg's heart. Each brush stroke felt like a step forward, a tiny rebellion against the weight of despair that had settled over their lives. When Sarah placed her hand over his, sharing the load, it felt like a breakthrough not just in their landscape but in their relationship. One breezy afternoon, they took a break from their relentless labor. Leaning against the warm bricks they had just uncovered, watching the sun cast golden hues on the walls, Greg braved the moment. "Let us make it a place for everyone," he said, his voice steady. "A community hub. Basketball courts, a library, classes, we could host movie nights." Despite the weariness etched in her features, Sarah's eyes lit up for the first time in ages. "You really think people would come?" "Absolutely," he replied, a small smile breaking through his careful demeanor. "We can create something new. Something that tells them they matter." But just as optimism built, a storm rolled in, both literally and figuratively. A torrential rain soaked the area, causing the old roof to start leaking. Greg stood in the empty main room, frantic as droplets splashed onto the floor where they had hoped to hold community meetings. He felt defeated. "Why can't we just catch a break?" he shouted, his voice echoing off the damp walls. Sarah stepped closer and placed her hand on his shoulder. "Maybe this is what we need to show us how strong we really are." Her words hung in the air, a reminder that resilience is born from challenges. With their boots squelching in the muddy ground, they pulled together. They found local workers willing to help, individuals in need who were eager to contribute to a communal goal. Greg was surprised by how many people rallied to lend a hand. From students eager to earn community service hours to retirees looking for purpose, the community embraced the project like it was their own. Greg and Sarah spent evenings brainstorming ideas, mapping out plans for classes and activities. They pulled in their neighbors, asking for input and inviting them to join the journey. It was building more than just a structure, it was knitting together a patchwork of lives and stories. Still, Greg's heart tugged with concern. Would it be enough? Could they really cover the costs to breathe life into this dream? The whispers of doubt echoed in his mind, trying to pull him back into the darkness he thought he had escaped. "Hey, what if we create a fundraiser? We could host local musicians and sell food," Sarah suggested one day, her enthusiasm contagious. It could be a celebration of what's to come. He almost dismissed it, but then he saw the fire in her eyes. This was not just about bricks and paint. "Yes, let us do it," he exclaimed, his spirit ignited once more. They planned late into the night, making flyers and reaching out to local businesses for sponsorships and donations. As the day of the event approached, the initial anxiety morphed into a mixture of exhilaration and fear. Would anyone show up? As the sun set before the fundraiser, Greg stood at the dilapidated entrance, watching as vehicles pulled in, one after another. His heart raced as he caught glimpses of familiar faces mixed with strangers. Band members set up, and the smell of grilled burgers wafted through the air. Sarah grabbed his arm, pulling him back from his thoughts. "Look," she said, her voice shimmering with excitement. "They're here." Greg's heart swelled, a flood of gratitude crashing over him. Here it was the chance to connect, to share this new beginning. But just as the first guitar notes strummed into the night, a shadow flickered behind him. A figure appeared, someone he hadn't seen in months, someone with the power to shake everything all over again. As the crowd cheered, the past loomed large, and a rush of emotions surged through Greg, raising questions he had long pushed aside. Could this person disrupt everything they had built, all the hope that had ignited between him and Sarah? Greg felt his pulse quicken as he turned slowly, the noise of laughter and music blurring into an uncertain haze. The figure was a familiar face, Mark, his estranged brother, whose presence stirred a cocktail of emotions. Anger, confusion, and a wave of buried memories rushed through him. The last time they spoke was a fight too cruel to revisit. "Greg," Mark said, his voice low and steady but laced with hesitation. I heard about the fundraiser. Thought I'd check it out." Greg stared, still processing the whirlwind of feelings swirling inside. Out of all the places, why this one? He tried to keep his tone measured, but it betrayed a hint of bitterness. "I'm trying to be better," Mark replied, glancing at the crowd, the stray beams of light catching the unease in his eyes. "I know I messed up before, but I just wanted to see." "See what? If you could ruin this too?" Greg spat, his voice rising involuntarily. He felt Sarah's presence next to him, her hand gently squeezing his arm as if to pull him back from this confrontation. "Greg, let him speak," she said softly, her eyes darting between them. Greg swallowed hard, battling the storm inside. Would Mark's arrival overshadow the night they had worked so hard for? A part of him wanted to close the door on their shattered relationship, but an undeniable curiosity lingered. What had brought Mark to this moment? Look, Mark continued, his gaze steady. I've been thinking a lot. About our family, about the mistakes I made. I want to help. I'm willing to pitch in if you can trust me. Trust. The word hung in the air like a challenge. Greg's thoughts raced to the past. The broken promises, the hurt, and the emptiness that festered in the wake of Mark's choices. But he couldn't deny that the same community spirit he and Sarah had sparked was igniting doubts and hopes within him too. Then, something shifted within him. Everyone around them needed this place to mean something. Even Mark. You really want to help? Greg asked, his voice steadier now but still guarded. Yeah, Mark replied, sincerity etched in his features. I want to be a part of this. Show you I can change. Before he could respond, the stage erupted with sound, guitar riffs filling the air, chasing some of the tension away. Greg stole a glance back at the crowd, charmed by eager faces, dancing and laughing, all here for something that mattered. All right, Greg finally said, measured and cautious. But you've got a lot to prove. The tentative truce hung between them, fragile yet electric. Sarah's reassuring smile returned, pulling Greg back into the moment. The crowd swelled with energy, and laughter overtook the residual tension. As the night unfolded, Mark joined in, mingling with friends and strangers. Greg kept a watchful eye, still torn between hope and mistrust. Each second felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, ready to leap but terrified of falling. The fundraiser was thriving, but Greg couldn't shake the feeling that a new layer of complexity had woven itself into their lives. Mark might just be the catalyst for Greg's greatest challenge yet. As the music reached a joyful crescendo, Greg felt the pull of a new uncertainty. If Mark's presence could disrupt their dream, could it also inspire unexpected healing? His heart raced as he caught Sarah's eye across the crowd, a silent question passing between them. They were at the beginning of something monumental, but with Mark back in the picture, what did that mean for their transformation? The night held promises, yet shadowed uncertainties edged their celebrations. With one foot in the past and another stepping into the future, Greg wondered if this unexpected reunion could carve out a new chapter or doom everything they had built together. And as lingering chords echoed through the dimly lit room, a thought tugged at his mind, could forgiveness be the real strength that binds them all? As the night wore on, the atmosphere thickened with both excitement and apprehension. Music pulsated through the venue, embracing everyone in a collective rhythm that felt almost sacred. For a moment, Greg allowed himself to be swept away by the joy around him, watching as people laughed, danced, and celebrated causes that resonated with their hearts. Yet, every time Mark flashed his crooked smile or engaged with a group, Greg couldn't shake the tight knot in his stomach. Sarah shifted closer to him, her warmth grounding him amid confusion. What do you think? She asked softly, her hazel eyes sparkling under the twinkling lights. I don't know, Greg admitted. I mean, it's good that he wants to help. But can we really trust him? She placed a reassuring hand on his back. Trust is built, not given. Just keep an open heart, okay? We both want this to succeed. That settled lightly in his mind. He tried to focus on the festivities, the laughter from a couple reminiscing by the bar, the clinking of glasses, the energetic beat pulling everyone together. Still, Mark's presence loomed. Greg found it hard to breathe as the festivities unfolded. Greg. Someone called from the crowd, interrupting his thoughts. It was Rachel, a close friend who had poured countless hours into organizing the fundraiser. You've got to see this. She waved him over enthusiastically. Reluctantly, he followed her through the crowd. Mark caught his eye just as he turned, a fleeting moment of connection filled with unspoken words. Greg quickened his pace, ready to escape the pressure bubbling inside him. When they reached the back room, the vibe shifted drastically. A table was set up with piles of donations, clothes, toys, food items. Rachel pointed to a patch of chaos. We were just sorting through this. We're a bit overwhelmed. Greg's heart warmed at the sight. This was why they had aimed for more, to bring the community together in a way that truly mattered. "Let us do this," he said, throwing himself into the task. As the hours passed, Greg found solace in the mundane, but his mind kept flickering back to Mark. He felt torn between the brother he once loved and the one who had betrayed him. Each time he stole a glance at Mark chatting animatedly with others, it ignited memories both bitter and sweet. As Greg unpacked a cardboard box, he pulled out an old stuffed bunny. Its fur was matted down in one spot, a token from his childhood. It had belonged to Emily, their little sister. In a flash, he remembered the day she had clung to them both, desperately wanting them to play nice, to be a family again. The pain of loss overwhelmed him. Knowing it wasn't just a toy, it was a reminder of what they had lost. "Greg, are you all right?" Sarah's voice broke through his reverie. Concern clouded her expression, and it triggered something in him. "Just thinking about Emily," he murmured. "About all of us and how far apart we've grown." "I know it hurts," she said, steadying her gaze on him. "But maybe this is a chance for healing. Look at how many people are benefiting tonight. Think about Emily, and how she always brought you two together." It was true. If they could just rekindle that love, that bond, maybe Mark had a chance to redeem himself, and maybe it wouldn't just save him, but Greg too. Time drifted on, the work rewarding but the tension around Mark unyielding. He was a wild card, a question mark hovering over the night. As the excitement of the event danced around them, Greg felt the weight of uncertainty settle deep inside. The fundraiser continued to thrive, warm hearts beating in unison, yet Greg was unsteady on shaky ground between hope and doubt. Eventually, he glanced back for Mark, who was now helping someone with bags. For better or worse, tomorrow would arrive with new opportunities, challenges, and perhaps a chance for reconciliation. But could Greg take the leap? Could he allow the past to shape a hopeful future, instead of letting it drown him in pain? As the night began to wind down, the glow of camaraderie flickered brightly around him, yet Mark's looming shadow still felt ever-present. The question remained, would Greg have the courage to let love guide him through this tangled maze of family and forgiveness? And at that moment, he knew one thing for sure: tomorrow might just be the day he confronts the truth head-on. The next morning dawned bright and clear, illuminating possibilities that felt both exciting and terrifying. Greg awoke with Sarah's calm voice echoing in his mind, urging him to embrace the day ahead. Sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains, casting gentle patterns across the room, yet each ray felt heavy with expectation. He rose, determination bubbling just beneath the surface. Today was the day he would seek out Mark. No more avoiding. The events from the night before continued to swirl in his head. The laughter, the joy, but most of all, the nagging feeling that they could begin to mend what was broken. After a quick breakfast, he and Sarah headed back to the venue to clean up after the festivities. The building still hummed with the remnants of their celebration, but now it felt like a blank canvas, waiting for something new. They entered the main hall, the smell of spilled drinks and leftover food lingering as reminders of the excitement that had filled the air. "Let us start over there," Sarah pointed towards a corner piled high with empty boxes. They moved together through the space, exchanging light-hearted banter with the other volunteers who were filtering in, all sharing the common goal of leaving a mark on the community. As Greg sorted through one of the boxes, his gaze darted around, searching for Mark. The knot in his stomach tightened again, yet there was a flicker of hope: maybe they could do this together. He dropped a few cardboard boxes and turned to Sarah, whose smile beamed encouragement. "Take a deep breath," she said, catching his eye. "It's just a conversation. You can do this." Just then, Mark appeared at the door, looking a bit out of place amidst the bustling volunteers. His crooked smile seemed forced, and for a moment, their eyes met. Greg's heart raced. This was the moment, a chance to break the silence wound tightly between them. "Hey, Mark," he called out, forcing himself to sound casual. The word hung in the air between them, a bridge or a chasm. "What's up, Greg?" Mark replied, stepping forward, his hands shoved deep into his pockets, his demeanor laced with nerves. "I think we need to talk," Greg said, his heart pounding. Sarah discreetly backed away, giving them space. "Sure," Mark said, glancing around as if searching for an escape. "What about?" "About Emily. About us. I just think there are things we need to say." Mark shifted uncomfortably. "You know I messed up. I didn't mean to hurt you guys." By now, Greg felt like they were standing on a tightrope stretched over a vast canyon of unresolved emotions. "It's not just about that. It's about family. It's about whether we can ever be brothers again. I want you to be part of this," he gestured to the room around them. "Part of the community we're trying to build again." Mark's eyes darkened. "You think I can? After everything?" "I believe you can. But you need to meet me halfway." "We both do," Greg said firmly, feeling the weight of his own words. The silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. In that moment, Greg realized they stood on the edge of something fragile yet powerful. "Can we start with just one conversation?" Mark finally said, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "Before we go any further?" "Absolutely," Greg replied, relief flooding through him. "I just want to understand where we stand. I want to try." As they began to talk, tentatively peeling back layers of hurt, it felt like a storm was finally breaking. They both needed a reconciliation that might take more than just one conversation. But as the emotional weight lifted, Greg felt the shadow of doubt still lurking. Conversion was just the first step, and the path to healing would be anything but smooth. Outside, a moment of thunder rumbled in the distance while their hearts raced to a new rhythm. Just then, Greg spotted Sarah watching them, concern and encouragement mingled across her face. What if this was just the beginning of a longer climb? What if opening up to Mark meant unraveling deeper truths they hadn't been brave enough to face? As they continued their conversation, Greg couldn't shake the feeling that everything hinged on this moment. They were at a crossroads, not just for their relationship, maybe for his sense of self too. Tomorrow held the promise of answers, but what if those answers challenged everything he thought he knew about family and forgiveness? The air hummed with tension as Greg and Mark navigated the choppy waters of their conversation. Words flowed and ebbed, thick with unspoken history. Greg leaned in, feeling the weight of his brother's gaze, searching for something, anything, that resembled understanding. "Emily made her choice," Mark said, his voice breaking slightly, a flicker of pain flashing across his features. "And it feels like it picked sides." "She's still your kid," Greg replied, frustration bubbling to the surface. "A kid who needs both her parents, no matter how messy things are right now." "I know," Mark sighed, running a hand through his hair, a gesture Greg recognized as a sign of growing stress. "But I don't even know how to start making amends." "You're not alone in this," Greg urged, his voice softening. "We can figure it out together. That's what family does." Mark's eyes met his, and for a moment, it felt like they were standing on the edge of something profound. But the moment slipped away, replaced by the painful reality of their situation. "How can you just forgive me?" Mark asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Forgiveness is hard, Mark. But holding on to anger and resentment is even harder," Greg replied. He felt it, an echo of the truth he had buried deep within himself. "Remember when we were kids? We fought, but we always came back to each other." "It's different now," Mark retorted, a harsh edge creeping into his tone. Still, there was a glimmer of hope in his eyes, a flicker that perhaps he was willing to listen. "What if I mess up again?" "Then we figure it out," Greg said firmly. "We learn and try again just like we always have. If it means standing together, then I'm all in." But Mark's expression darkened at the mention of trying again, as if the mere suggestion held more weight than either of them could bear. "And what if we crossed a line too far?" "Then we rebuild from the ashes," Greg said, his own voice steady now, thick with emotion. His heart raced at the thought of their broken past, fragments scattered like memories lost in time. We can't stay this way, stuck in a cycle of hurt. As the tension in the room began to thaw, Greg saw a shift in Mark's demeanor. He was opening up, the walls fading just a little. With each word exchanged, the invisible bonds that once felt like chains began to loosen. I want that, Mark confessed, his voice cracking. But I'm scared. I'm scared I won't be able to fix what's broken. The clouds outside thickened, thunder rumbling like an echo of their inner turmoil. Greg stepped closer, searching for the right words, the kind that would reach Mark's heart and pull him back from the edge. You don't have to fix this alone, Mark. You have me. Just don't run away. Stay. For a long moment, Mark stared at him, a maze of emotions playing out across his face. Finally, he nodded, the slightest tremor of acceptance gliding through him. Okay. I'll try to stay. Hope flickered between them, igniting a fragile bridge where there had once been only darkness. They took a breath, a shared sigh of relief hanging in the air, filled with both promise and uncertainty. But just as Greg felt a wave of optimism washing over him, a sharp sound broke through the moment, a loud crash from the back of the hall. They jumped, instincts kicking in. They rushed toward the noise, adrenaline spurring them forward. What they found made Greg's heart sink. Boxes had toppled, and along with them, a small crowd of volunteers stared wide-eyed at the disaster. In the chaos, he spotted Sarah, her face a mask of horror. Greg. Mark. We need help. She called, desperation coloring her tone. Greg exchanged a quick glance with Mark. They had taken a step forward, but would this setback pull them back into the abyss? As they rushed to help clean up the mess, Greg realized that every moment held a choice. They were still climbing, and the journey ahead was rocky. Would these new foundations hold as they faced challenges together, or would the cracks run deeper than he thought? With each box they righted, Greg's resolve sharpened. Tomorrow would come with new challenges, but for now, hope tugged at the edges of their battered relationship. What could possibly happen next? The chaos was palpable as Greg and Mark dashed towards the pile of fallen boxes. The volunteers around them were in a frenzy, some scrambling to pick up papers while others tried to restore order. Greg's heart raced not only from the rush of the moment but from the pressure building between him and Mark. Okay, let's clear this out, Greg shouted, forcing urgency into his tone. He picked up a box, feeling the weight of it in his hands. Mark followed suit, digging in alongside him. With every box they lifted, Greg could see the tension in Mark's shoulders slowly easing. They worked side by side, barely speaking, but there was an understanding growing between them, a rhythm to their movements that felt almost familiar. As they stacked the boxes, Mark hesitated, glancing up at Greg. I owe you, he said, pausing, eyes serious. For everything. You didn't have to come back. Greg shrugged, brushing the dust from his jeans. What are brothers for? Never going to abandon you. Just like I promised. He offered a small smile, hoping to lighten the weight that was still thick in the air. Yeah, Mark replied, his voice almost a whisper. It's just I didn't think I defined myself here. Not after everything. Life can hit hard, Greg acknowledged, his heartbeat slowing as he felt the weight of his brother's struggles. But it's about what we do next that matters. As the last of the boxes was set aside, Sarah approached, looking slightly more composed but still shaken. Thanks, you guys. I don't know what happened. I turned my back for 1 second. Her voice wavered as she surveyed the aftermath, fear etched across her face. We've got this, Greg reassured her, putting his hand on her shoulder. We'll make it work. Together. Mark looked over at Greg, a flicker of gratitude shining through the fog of uncertainty. You really believe that, don't you? Yeah, Greg replied, his heart lightening. If we can face this, we can face anything. But just as hope began to settle in, Sarah's phone buzzed loudly. She pulled it from her pocket, checking the message, her expression turning grave. Oh no, Emily. What? What's wrong? Mark's voice rose, a sense of dread creeping into his tone. It's a message from her, Sarah said, fear brimming in her eyes. It says she's south at the park. She wants to talk. What does that mean? Greg asked, tension knotting in his stomach. Mark stepped forward, suddenly feeling the weight of responsibility descend on him once more. Stay here. I'll go. I need to face her, he declared, breathless and resolute. No. Sarah blurted, grabbing his arm. Mark, you shouldn't go alone. I need to do this, he replied firmly, his gaze intense. I need to sort things out before it's too late. With every moment dragging, Greg sensed the storm brewing just beyond their current troubles. Wait, Greg interjected, trying to steady the urgency swirling around them. What if we all go together? This isn't something you should face alone, Mark. Mark looked back and forth between Greg and Sarah, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. The ripples from Emily's choice were growing larger, threatening to consume them all. All right, Mark conceded, a lone resolve blooming among the uncertainty. Together then. As they stepped outside, the air felt charged, heavy with emotions, possibilities, and the looming half-light of the setting sun. What awaited them at the park? Would Emily's words push them further apart or unite them with a new understanding? In that moment, it struck Greg that sometimes, hope didn't just stem from bonding, it could also rise from facing challenges together, even if it meant diving headfirst into the deep unknown. What would Emily say when they arrived? What would her words reveal, and how would it reshape their fragile world? The park loomed ahead, trees swaying gently as if whispering secrets of their own. Greg's heart raced again, anxiety rising with each step. Mark walked slightly ahead, his posture tense, shoulders drawn tight. The afternoon sunlight was slowly fading, casting long shadows that mirrored the weight of the moment. As they approached the park's entrance, the sound of laughter and conversation drifted toward them, starkly contrasting the turmoil brewing in Mark's heart. What was it about Emily that made every encounter feel like walking on shards of glass? What do you think she wants? Sarah asked, her voice unsteady, forcing Greg to pull his thoughts back to the present. I don't know, Mark replied, stopping short. But whatever it is, it can't be good. The wariness in his tone became its own weight, one that he struggled to carry. Before Greg could offer support, Emily appeared a few yards away, sitting on a bench. Her head was bent, fingers fiddling with the hem of her shirt. There was a distance in her demeanor, an invisible wall that screamed of unresolved pain. It's time, Mark said, taking a deep breath as he glanced back at Greg and Sarah. Stay close. Together, they walked toward Emily, the air around them heavy with unspoken words. She looked up just as they arrived, her eyes wide and glossed over, almost as if she had been waiting for them but was unsure of how to begin. Mark, she said softly, her voice trembling. I didn't know how to reach you. The hesitation in her voice cut through Greg, like a warning siren. Why did you text me? Mark asked, the hurt evident in his tone. After everything, you just want to talk now? Because I need to explain, Emily said, glancing at Sarah and Greg, then back to Mark. I messed up, and I'm sorry. I never intended to hurt you. Her words hung in the air, suffocating the space between them. Greg could see Mark's walls starting to crumble, but a shield of caution covered his heart. You hurt a lot more than just me, Em. You've hurt the whole family. I know, she said urgently. And that's why I can't keep living like this. I need to make things right, or at least try. What does that even mean? Mark demanded, frustration coloring his tone. Coming here and saying sorry? It doesn't change anything. Emily stiffened but held her ground. I can't change the past, but I can try to fix what's broken. Her voice was firm, with determination, yet Greg could sense the uncertainty behind it, like a flickering light. The park noise faded away as silence enveloped them, each of them caught in their own web of emotions. Greg exchanged glances with Sarah, who wore a concerned frown. Could healing truly come from this confrontation? Or was this just another spiral of disappointment? I don't know if I can forgive you right now, Mark finally murmured, his voice thick with emotion. That's okay, Emily replied, her chin lifting defiantly. But I'm here to listen, to talk about the things we've ignored. Greg's heart ached at the sight of his brother, clearly torn between anger and a desire to connect. Would they truly be able to bridge the chasm that lay before them? As the deepening dusk settled around them, Greg felt a flicker of hope, fragile and tentative. He wanted to believe they could still find a way through this. Let's figure this out together, Sarah finally said, stepping forward, her warmth radiating certainty. We all need to hear each other. Mark nodded slowly, the tension in him easing just a little. Yet as they sat down, each of them feeling the gravity of what lay ahead, Greg couldn't shake the feeling that answers would bring more questions. What would it take to truly heal? And could Emily's truths pave a path to resolution or deepen the wounds they all carried? The bench creaked under their weight as they settled in. Mark shifted slightly, turning slightly to face Emily, the air vibrating with an energy that was both charged and fragile. Greg could feel the tension in his brother's body like a tight coil, poised to spring one way or another. I don't want to hear excuses, Mark said, his voice quieter but firm. I want to know why. Why did you walk away from us? From me? Emily inhaled deeply, a shaky breath that sounded like it might shatter glass. Because I was scared, Mark. Scared of how deep our problems ran, scared of disappointing you. Disappointing me? Mark echoed, disbelief clawing through his tone. You didn't just disappoint me, Em. You shattered everything we built. I know. Her gaze dropped again, defeated. But I thought if I distanced myself, maybe things would magically improve. I know now that's not how it works. I made a mistake. A series of mistakes. The honesty in her words landed heavily between them, and Greg watched a flicker of something in Mark's eyes. Was it understanding? Or maybe just the overwhelming swirl of emotions crashing against each other in his mind? I can't just pretend it didn't happen, Mark insisted, anger resurfacing. It's not that simple. Neither is healing, Emily shot back, her voice tinged with desperation. I didn't come here expecting you to forgive me instantly. I came because I want to start somewhere. Anywhere. Mark's brow furrowed as if he were considering her words, wrestling with dread. You think we can just start over? Like flipping a switch? Not start over. Start to rebuild, she said, her voice softening. We all got lost somehow. But it's not too late. Just then, a young girl's laughter rang out nearby, and for an instant, it was as if the world outside them hadn't been turned upside down. Greg glanced sideways at Sarah, whose eyes were glued to Emily, absorbing every word. I didn't come here hoping to fix everything in one talk. I've put you through so much. Emily paused, her breaths growing shallow. But I'll do anything to earn back your trust. I don't know if that's enough, Mark finally admitted, a tremor in his voice. Emily reached out a hesitant hand, her fingers trembling in the fading light. Let me prove it to you. I can't change the past, but I can try to change the future, our future. Please, let me try. The solemnity of her plea hung in the air, thick and heavy. The shadows around them deepened, mirroring the uncertainty in Mark's heart. He hesitated, fought against the instinct to push her away, and yet Greg could see the cracks forming in his brother's defenses. Maybe we can start talking more. Just talk, Mark finally said, as if testing the waters. No promises, though. Emily's lips curled slightly, a tentative smile breaking through the sadness. That's more than I hoped for. The three of them sat in silence, the sound of evening settling around them, creating a fragile cocoon as the sun dipped lower, casting everything in hues of gold and orange. Hope flickered to life as Greg caught a glimpse of something resembling a connection forming. It felt small yet monumental, like the quiet beginnings of a new season. Can we talk about the elephant in the room? Sarah ventured cautiously, breaking the tension. What's it going to take for us to trust again? For this not to implode? Emily nodded, clearly understanding the weight of her choices. Let us just be honest, even if it hurts. Fine. Mark ran a hand through his hair, frustration blending with resolve. Let us be honest. But I can't promise I'll like what I hear. That's okay, Emily replied, her determination unwavering. Just promise you'll listen. As they began the challenging process of laying everything on the table, Greg's heart raced. Would they find a way through the pain? Would their honesty pave a road back to each other or dig the chasm deeper? The uncertainty hung in the air, thick like the impending twilight. What truths lay hidden in the silence yet to break? The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the park as the conversation flowed tentative yet honest. Each word felt like an unraveling thread, pulling back layers of hurt and misunderstanding. Emily began, her voice steady despite the tremor beneath. I didn't realize how much my choices impacted you. I was selfish and scared, but I want you to know I never meant to make you feel alone. Mark's brow furrowed, processing her words as if they held the key to a prisoner's shackles. You didn't give me a chance to understand you, to help. It's like you just cut me off. I know, she admitted, her eyes glistening with unspilled tears. I felt trapped in my own fears. But I see now that I caused a rift that needs mending. Trust me, it won't be easy, Mark warned, a serious note creeping back into his voice. You can't expect everything to heal overnight. It's going to take time. Greg watched as their words hung in the air, raw, uncomfortable, yet filled with a tentative hope. There was an earnestness in Mark's gaze that made Greg wish to reach across the chasm, echoing a longing for reconciliation. I know it feels daunting, Emily replied, her strength shining through. But healing begins with honesty, embracing the hurt. Then we can start redefining what family means to us. Greg sensed the weight of those words shifting something in Mark, a flicker of recognition lighting up his features. It wasn't just about forgiveness, it was about rebuilding the very essence of their family. Maybe we need to have those hard conversations more often, Sarah interjected, stepping closer and giving a heartfelt nod. It's easy for misunderstandings to fester when we don't talk. Mark nodded slowly. After everything, I'm willing to try. But it's going to require a lot from all of us. If you think I can just forget the past, it's unrealistic. And I wouldn't ask that of you, Emily replied softly. You have every right to feel hurt. I want to prove to you that I can be better, for both of us, for the family we need. The air felt electric, alive with possibility. Greg's heart beat with encouragement as he caught the glimmer of hope in the moments passed between them. He wanted this, needed this for both his brother and sister. I believe in you both, he finally said, a few words echoing with conviction. But it's going to take work, effort, and most of all, trust. As the sky darkened, Greg felt the bonds of their relationship begin to weave together once more. It wouldn't be easy, storms would come, and sometimes they might feel lost again. But if they stood united, with honesty as their foundation, perhaps they could rise above it all. What's next? Mark asked, a hint of vulnerability peeking through his walls. We keep talking, we keep showing up, Greg replied. One day at a time, you know? Mark released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding, a flicker of relief passing through him as he met Emily's gaze. All right, Mark murmured, the tension easing further between them. Let's give this a real go. Emily beamed, glancing from Greg to Sarah, warmth radiating enough to pierce through the night's chill. The love they shared as siblings, forged in experience and strain, began to burn brighter once more, illuminating the darkness that had long surrounded them. As they spoke, the shadows faded, replaced by laughter and tenderness, fresh beginnings unfolding with each shared word. Greg thought about the old factory. It wasn't just a building they were saving, it was a new chapter for their lives together, a place where hearts could heal and dreams could flourish. Later, as they walked away from the park, Greg felt a swell of gratitude. He who had felt so broken just months before now found solace in the idea that they were stepping into the future hand in hand, stronger than before. Together, he whispered, a promise solidifying within him. Together. And as they left the park behind, the stars twinkling like hopes newly born, Greg realized that sometimes the hardest paths lead to the brightest destinations. They had carved out a new road filled with love, honesty, and family. This was it. This was their beginning. And as the night enveloped them, Greg couldn't help but feel that the real healing was just beginning. So let this be a reminder, no matter how broken the past may seem, hope can blossom if you dare to reach out and embrace it. Trust in yourself. Trust in each other. And above all, cherish the journey forward. If this story has touched your heart, you need to subscribe now to catch the next chapter in our journey. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread the hope. Comment below your thoughts and feelings about how this journey impacted you, and don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who could use a little inspiration. You know the importance of supporting the community. Let us keep the love flowing.